Small business.
Yeah, it's priority.
That big like somebody working.
Ms. Jones, would you please convene the Athletics Committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Griffith, please call roll.
And Ms. Jones,
Here.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Anderson,
Here.
Mr. Armenter,
Here.
Mr. Blossman,
Here.
Mr. Brazel,
Here.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Damp,
Here.
Mr. Starnes,
Here.
Mr. Woods. Ms. Jones, you have a form.
Thank you, Ms. Griffith. If anyone in the room is curious where LSU ranks in multiple sports, you won't have to read too far down any of the lists. LSU currently has 4 teams ranked #1 in the nation: women's and men's track, beach volleyball, who just recently defeated perennial powerhouse and previous #1 ranked UCLA here at home in front of a packed crowd, and of course, our national championship football team. LSU softball under head coach Beth Torino is competing at the very highest levels of the sport, ranked in the top 5 in the nation. Finally, women's tennis, gymnastics, and baseball are all ranked in the top 25, and our men's and women's basketball teams have their eyes on postseason play. This spring, as always, it's great to be a Tiger. Congratulations to all the successes that we've experienced this spring, this year, and look forward to even greater success going forward. At this time, I'd like to ask Scott Woodward to please present the items for the Athletics Committee.
Madam Chair, members, good to see you today. Where would you like for me to start?
Item number 1.
Great. And
After this season, you can start anywhere you want.
Absolutely. As long as you promise
Thank
to
you,
keep
Counselor.
doing it.
That's right, you're only as good as your last win. I assume the first item is Coach Ogeron's contract. I don't have the agenda in front of me, I apologize.
You can start there. That'll be just fine. The first item is actually the ticket, parking, and tradition fund policy.
Yes.
You might want to take that one last.
Good advice. Okay. This is a very iterative and ongoing process on the ticket. It was a process that began years ago, and only 3 years of the plan were implemented. And so we're continuing that because we think it's a good time to do this. And this is really the last phase of this program that began. And as you can see in the methodology below, the reasons that we came to it, we're going up in prices in some things and down in others. And we think it's a very, very fair proposal that gives our fans a good product, and as you can see, a very, very competitive product in the marketplace compared to people that we benchmark against in the conference. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that front specifically.
All right, are there any questions related to this item?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, very good. So we have a motion by Supervisor Starnes and a second by Mr. Damp. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any objection? Hearing none, it is approved. All right, the second item, Mr. Woodward, the employment contract for Coach Hudson.
Yes. This is our new women's soccer coach, and I'm very pleased to announce that we did an exhaustive search nationwide. Dan Gaston, who's our sports administrator, led this search and did a fabulous job. And we're really pleased with Coach Hudson. She's from Wales and a very successful coach. And we have a contract, as you can see in front of you. It's a 5-year deal. ranging and starting at 160,000 and ending in year 2024 at 180. And she's already making good changes and doing good things and getting the team ready for this coming fall. And so I'm pleased to announce this and would appreciate your support.
Okay, are there any questions concerning this contract? If there are none, I will accept a motion.
So moved. Second.
So moved by Mr. Damp and seconded by Mr. Armenter. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any objections? The motion is approved. All right, Mr. Woodward, the third item is the request to approve term sheets for the head coach.
Yes,
Football coach.
this one is, I guess, the worst kept secret in the history of LSU. But obviously, to quote old coaches when they talk to their kids, that they say, young man or young lady, your actions speak so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. And this is one of those cases where Coach O took this job with a lot of skeptical people, me included, and I told that to him, as then an AD somewhere else and an alumnus. And he has outperformed and outdone everyone's expectations. And anyone that says they thought he would do this, maybe with the exceptions of Mr. Andrews, they're lying. And he's done it the way we like to do it, the LSU way, cares about our kids but loves them hard, wins the right way, makes sure that they get their education and does all the right things. And I think this is a very fair contract. It's fair to market. It's not crazy, but it's competitive, and it's going to reward a guy who's Louisiana's own in a very fair and proper way. And I'm happy to answer any questions and plead you for your support.
Okay, are there any questions on this item or discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this contract.
Excellent.
I knew you'd do that.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a motion by Mr. Starnes and a second by Mr. Damp. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Without objection, it is approved. Mr. Woodward, the fourth item and final item is the offensive coordinator's contract. I'm sorry, defensive coordinator's contract.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And as you all know, with successful good programs comes the annual season, which we Louisianans know all too well, of poaching. And we had a few of our good employees poached, and for good reason. We're very proud of Coach Aranda getting the head coaching job at Baylor University, and it's a sign of we doing the right things here. And we were very lucky to get a guy in Bo Pelini who was Coach Ogeron's first choice, and really it didn't take long for Coach to decide and come to that point, and we were lucky to get it done in a hurry. It is the high end of the market, just so you guys know, but I think Coach Pelini's resume and defensive teams, both here at LSU and at other places, Oklahoma, and as a Belichick disciple, have proved that this worth is all that case. And I back Coach Ogeron 1,000% on this, and I know Bo, and I think he's going to lead us to have great defenses and continue to have great defenses at LSU. And here again, I'm happy to answer any questions and would plead for your support.
Are there any questions or discussions around this item?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, so I have Mr. Anderson has motioned and seconded by Mr. Blossman. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any objection? Without objection, it is approved. I will accept a motion to conclude the business of the Athletic Committee at this time. Thank Thank you, Scott.
Yes, I'm done, except just to tell you and let you know that at the next meeting, we will come to you with the other staff contracts. We're in the process of getting them drafted and getting them ready, and just wanted to give you a heads up there.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
I move that we conclude.
Okay, so I've got a motion from Mr. Blossman, a second from Mr. Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? Okay, without objection, Madam Chair, this concludes the business of the Athletic Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Thank you so much, and thank you to the athletic staff for coming to present this to us today. Mr. Blossman, would you please convene the Affiliated Organization Oversight Committee?
Sure, Ms. Griffith, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Blossman?
Here.
Mr. Starnes?
Here.
Mr. Armenter?
Here.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Chatelain?
Mr. Brown's here.
Here.
Hold on.
Thank you.
Mr. Damp?
Here.
Mr. Mallett?
Here.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Yarborough?
Here.
Mr. Blossman, you have a form.
Thank you. Winston, would you please present the first committee item?
The first committee item is the proposed uniform affiliation agreement. We have shared this agreement with all of the board members, and we have shared this agreement with all of the foundations at all of our respective campuses. The purpose for this agreement, as you know, is to provide for a little more transparency so that our board members can participate as board members of the foundations, as non-voting members, and see what the foundations are doing and get an understanding as to how the foundations support the school. The key change is that the board chair will have the right to nominate a board member to the foundation. The foundation will be obligated to vote one of the members recommended by the board chair as a non-voting member of the board. And that person will sit as a regular board member, a non-voting member of the foundation board. There have been some other tweaks. One of the other tweaks is that our foundations will have agreed to notify smaller foundations for which they manage money of their either obligations to have an audit or obligations to give us a certification that they're exempt from audit. We also have a provision that says if, and I know this is hard to believe, but if one of our campuses would happen to move, that we would allow that foundation to move with the campus if it signs an affiliation agreement with that campus with its new system. And what's that to ensure, and I give folks the UNO example, when UNO moved from LSU to the UL system, they had some foundations that were set up just to support UNO, and those foundations moved to continue to support UNO with its new system. So we've revised the UAA to allow for that to happen, should it happen again in the future. That really summarizes the big changes. I'd like to open it up to you guys if you have any questions.
I have some comments, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
This has been a long process, really begun as soon as I was appointed supervisor. Then incoming chair, James Williams, in his tremendous vision, created this committee. And what he saw was the way that the committee system had been set up to supervise LSU, which was several years old, did not take into account the growing importance and prominence of foundations and affiliates in modern university life. Years ago, there were no foundations or affiliates. It was just the university. Today, fundraising and a lot of the special projects that have to be done, donor relations, things of that nature, are done almost exclusively by foundations. But the board of supervisors did not have a committee system that accounted for that growing prominence. So when James Williams created this committee and installed me as the first chair, we were starting things fresh, brand new. This was a new territory about a relationship between the university and our foundations and affiliates. I thank the foundations for working with us to come to some type of agreement. The way that we interact with each other wasn't clearly defined at the time, and it needed to be. We are fiduciaries of this university. We have a responsibility that each and every one of us take extremely seriously to make sure that when LSU operates, we're doing so in the most prudent manner that we can possibly do so. And that includes a role to supervise those foundations and affiliates. Again, what that exactly meant, there's been a lot of back and forth on how we got to where we are today. There have been some amendments and changes to the proposed agreement that I think need a lot of work. But we can do that work. There is no agreement, good or bad, that works or not works, absent the relationship between the parties. So the relationship between our foundations and affiliates has always been the most important thing. We want to continue the dialogues, continue growing the relationship, continue developing that trust and working relationship so that we know that we're all working towards the same thing, the betterment of LSU. And I think the specific clauses and provisions, some of which I'm not in agreement with, but at least we're at a place where we can start. And I would like to continue to grow the understanding of what our relationship is, the memorialization of it through these agreements in the future. But, Mr. Chairman, I think for now we're at a place where at least we can start. So, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir. Mr. Damp.
I want to commend and thank Mr. Storms and Mr. Blossman. I've been involved as a committee member, and this was a tremendous amount of work, this whole enterprise. And Tom Skinner and Winston DeQueer as our counsel did yeoman's work, and I think, tip of the hat to all those folks who really worked hard. And, from my perspective, you get this great honor to be on this board, and truthfully, and again, only speaking for myself, I didn't know a whole lot of stuff. And it is a pretty steep learning curve. And the foundations and the affiliates, a big part of that. And Remy's right, our communication and our understanding was not great. And the reality is, you only exist because of us, but we desperately need you. And there are a lot of volunteers and a lot of hardworking people in the Alumni Association particularly, and TAF and the foundation and the Pennington folks. And we know and need and appreciate all of you and all of those folks. But we do need to do a better job of learning about each other, a better job with communication. And I know that's one of the things the chair and I have talked and others have talked about in terms of orientation, in terms of a retreat and so forth, so that really, and again, as back to what Remy said, it's about relationships and knowing each other and knowing what we're doing and why we're doing what we're doing. And so I think this has been a great step forward with a lot of work. And again, thanks and appreciation to Mr. Blossman and Mr. Storms. And it's really a beginning. We can do better, we will do better, and we've got a lot to learn and work together because we all have the same goal. We're all Tigers. We're all for LSU. And it's been a really good process, and I'm really pleased with where we are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone else? Madam Chair?
I was going to reserve this for later, but in case some folks can't stay with us throughout the duration of today, I do want to add to what Mr. Damp just said and thank, first of all, he couldn't stay with us right now, but past Chair Williams for starting this process. And, this is one that the president and I talk about. It's not always pretty watching how we make the sausage, but it's important that we get it done. And this has certainly been a long slog of work by many, many parties. The supervisors, the committee has put in quite a bit of work, and committee chair, Mr. Starnes, for taking this and carrying it along. You know, we're using a lot of sports analogies lately. We're all proud of all of that, but you know, this is not a carried across the finish line in a 60-minute timetable. This took a lot of work and 2 years of the board work. So to both committee chairs, I want to thank you, but also, as importantly, to the leadership of the foundations, the legal representation, the folks who've been at the table in every conversation, the volunteer leadership and the professional leadership of each organization. It's been vital to have your voices. You know, the big 3 that we talk about all the time, TAF, Alumni Association, and the foundation here, but as importantly, all the foundations that do the work in every community, in every piece of this university. So I want to thank you all collectively, and I hope to have the chance to speak to you all individually, because this was not a pretty process to start out with, but I think we did gain a lot of insight and understanding of the role and the vital role that each organization plays in achieving the goals, which is to provide the facilities, educate students, turn out LSU Tigers all across the state. So thank you all very much for all the work you've done, and to the 2 committee chairs who've carried this through. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the proposal as written. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Damp made the motion. Mr. Brown seconded. Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay. Do we have, I guess, Mr. Lazell, will you present the next item, please?
Yes, Mr. Blossman, members of the committee, the second item is a request from the LSU Research Foundation to approve appointments to the board of directors and the officers of the board. As you may remember, at the January meeting, the board approved entering into a cooperative endeavor agreement with the Research Foundation for the management of facilities and support of various research and economic development activities. As a result of that agreement, it requires, in the Research Foundation's bylaws, requires the Research Foundation to submit to the Board of Supervisors the approval for names of nominees to the Board of Directors, and as well as the chairmanship. Attached to the board, to the item, is a list of 7 individuals who are being recommended for membership to the board, of which, those 7, Mr. Lee Griffin of Baton Rouge is recommended as the chair of that foundation board. In addition to that, as noted by Mr. DeQueer in the last item, under the new uniform affiliation agreement, the board will have the opportunity to appoint a non-voting member, and there is one additional board appointment that was codified in the CEA. So there will be a total of 2 individuals that the board, via the board chair, will be able to appoint in addition to the 7 individuals being recommended if in fact they are approved. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and would ask for your approval.
Can you tell me, can you read the list of who's on the board?
There are 3 university members, Mr. Tony Lombardo, Mr. Tyler Carney, Ms. Donna Torres, who have been significantly involved with the transition of the research, what was previously the Research and Tech Foundation to the new Research Foundation. The 4 non-university members would be Mr. Lee Griffin, Mr. Charles Landry, Mr. Bill Firesheets, and then Mr. Rob Stewart.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else? Any other questions?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Mallett, second.
Mr. Chairman.
Second by Mr. Yarbrough. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, so ordered. Carried.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to conclude the meeting.
So moved.
Second. I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Mallett, second by Mr. Brown. Any opposition? Madam Chair, we have concluded our business.
Thank you, Mr. Blossman. Mr. Armentor, would you please convene the Healthcare and Medical Education Committee?
I will, Madam Chairman. Ms. Griffith, would you please call the roll?
Sir, Mr. Armenter,
Here.
Ms. Jones. Here. Mr. Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Blossman.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Damp.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
Mr. Perry. Mr. Yarborough.
Here.
Mr. Armenter, you have the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe the President will present the item for the Health and Medical Education Committee. Mr. President.
Thank you, Chair Armentor. There is an unmet need for dental care in rural North Louisiana, and indeed, there's an unmet need for dental care across all of rural Louisiana, as well as for folks who have financial need. As a result of that, Senator Peacock last year introduced a study resolution which was passed in the Senate asking the Board of Regents to study the feasibility of establishing a second school of dentistry at LSU Health Sciences Shreveport. Board of Regents commissioned a study to study the issue. Simultaneously, Health Sciences Shreveport commissioned a study to study that issue amongst others. Regents had those studies before them in January, and they asked us, LSU, to respond. What I did is I asked Chancellor Ollier and Chancellor Ghali to consider the studies, to consider Regents' recommendation, and to advise me. After receiving their advice, Chair Armentor, you and I discussed the issue, then we discussed it with the entire committee. So at this point, our recommendation is that LSU not move forward with the establishment of a new dental school in Shreveport. We're dedicated to our Shreveport campuses, we're dedicated to the people of North Louisiana, and we are dedicated to the economy of the region. The recommendation is based on the distinction between the critical unmet need for dental services versus the efficacy and feasibility of a new dental school. A new dental school would not immediately provide services to those in need, nor would it guarantee that graduates would practice in those high-need areas. So if we all agree that providing services to the people is the focus, then we do not think now is the best time for the construction of a new dental school, but now, as Regents indicated, is the time for a deep collaborative focus on overcoming existing hurdles to develop clinical sites that will truly help our citizens. In that regard, my recommendation is that Dr. Ghali, Chancellor of LSU Health Sciences Shreveport, and Dr. Henry Gremion, Dean of the LSU School of Dentistry, lead a working group to provide the first plan of a draft, and I would ask that they get that plan to me, the draft at least, by the end of the month, so I can report back to the Board of Supervisors and then to Regents. The plan should include not only a timeline for having clinical sites up and running, but also a geographic placement of the clinics and the human and financial resources needed to put such a plan in place. I would hope the plan would also include recommendations related to state resources and other resources that might be used to incentivize professionals to set up residences in the areas where there is unmet need. That might include student loan forgiveness, funding of rural practice initiatives, scholarships, and other possibilities. Chair Armentor, that concludes my recommendation, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. That was very thorough. Are there any questions? There being none, do I have a motion to accept as presented?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Yarborough, second. Who moved? And Mr. Blossman made the motion. All those in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Madam Chairman, I think that concludes the work of the committee. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
James?
Yes.
And Robert? Seconded. Madam Chairman, the committee has concluded its work.
Thank you, Mr. Armentor. At this time, we will reconvene the board meeting. Ms. Griffith, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Armenter?
Here.
Mr. Blossman?
Here.
Mr. Brazel?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Chatelain? Mr. Damp?
Here.
Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Mallett?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Starnes?
Here.
Ms. Werner? Mr. Williams? Mr. Woods?
Here.
Mr. Yarborough?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I'm also present. For our approval are the minutes of the board meeting held on January 10th, 2020. These minutes were previously provided. Are there any questions? None. I will accept one motion to adopt the meeting of these minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Mallett, seconded by Mr. Damp. Is there any opposition? Without objection, the minutes are approved. We will now move to personnel actions requiring board approval. Is there a motion to adopt the personnel actions?
So moved.
Mr. Mallett, and second by Mr. Anderson. Is there any objection? Without objection, the actions are approved. At this time, I'd like to say a hearty congratulations to Mr. Winston DeQueer Jr., and we look forward to working with you for many years in the future. Welcome back to LSU. Would you like to say anything?
Oh, it's really special to be back at the alma mater, and I would like to point out that my dad and my brother are here. They just slipped in the back, and my dad is law school class of 1975. So thank you. And my wife snuck back in too.
Good catch.
It was class of 2004 from the Law Center.
We're glad y'all could join us, and we are very happy to have you with us, Winston. Thank you. It's now time for the staff advisors and faculty advisors reports.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to report to you on the activities of the staff around the system. We'd like to start off by thanking Chairman Werner for attending the employee recognition event that was held earlier this week. I heard great reviews, and your words were very inspirational, and we wanted to acknowledge that there was one person recognized at this ceremony who had more than 55 years of service with the LSU system. Professor James Hardy from the history department was recognized, and we just thought it was phenomenal and wanted to bring special attention to that service, and just really was excited about that. We also wanted to mention that the second annual fundraiser for staff professional development is occurring on the A&M campus. Last year, in their first attempt, they raised $14,000 and hoping to exceed that this year to fund those educational opportunities. Pennington staff is also fundraising. They have begun their 2020 employee giving campaign, which directly benefits the research and projects done at Pennington. So this is the faculty and staff giving back to the organization. Last year, they raised $55,000 and had 52% employee participation, and their goal this year is 60% participation. LSUA continues with their 60th anniversary celebrations. The staff there are contributing to those, and they recently held an International Women's Day symposium that featured a student speaker, a faculty speaker, and a staff speaker relevant to that topic. LSU East Staff Senate is fundraising for scholarships, and they were happy that on their first attempt they were able to support 3 different scholarships that are awarded to staff members. And they are joining forces with their student activity board to plan Easter activities and things around the campus. And on May 22nd, they're going to have their staff Senate Spring Appreciation event. In the Ag Center, we are preparing for some spring activities as well. We have Ag Magic happening in April, and we're gearing up for the 4-H Achievement Days. And our staff organization has recently published their 2020 educational calendar. We're going to have monthly events and educational opportunities for our staff. And in our meeting, we looked for ways and opportunities that we can support the system at LSU Day at the Capitol on April 22nd. So that's the events, and that's what's happening. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Ms. Gotro. Before you leave, I really enjoyed being at the event, and besides the honor of the professor, I think the collective amount of years represented, because these were anniversary years of 2020, 25 on to 55 years, in that room was represented over 3,000 years of employment and service to LSU by faculty and staff, and that was the most remarkable statistic given that day. So,
yes.
And Provost Haney did a fantastic job in recognizing each employee. So, thank you for having me. It was quite stunning to see all that service to our university right there in that room. Thank you. Dr. Vancheri.
Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to present on behalf of the Council of Faculty Advisors. I'll be brief, but first we want to thank the board for the opportunity to meet today with the consultants from AGB. We had a very lively discussion with the consultants, and also reminded them that the council had recommended in their prior consultation not merging the positions of president and chancellor, and have been able to outline some significant issues today with the consultant. So we really appreciate that opportunity. One of the ongoing items from the Council of Faculty Advisors that we bring up at least on an annual basis is that of consideration of a non-voting faculty member on the Board of Supervisors. We are aware that this is common in many institutions, and encourage the board to consider that, because in discussions like whether to cancel classes in a particular day, you would have had a faculty voice right there for you, and obviously we had objected to that. So going forward, we're here for you and open for your discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, and appreciate this involvement of the faculty in the process which the board is going through at this time. So, at this time, we will turn it over to Interim President Galligan for the President's report.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, and I will start by telling you that I think this is pretty close to my 2-month anniversary as interim president, and I will literally never forget my first 2 months in this position. I really started January 6th. On my 1-week anniversary, I watched what I think is the greatest college football team that I have ever seen win the national championship. Later that week, we went off to the White House. We had a great celebration here. We then went off to Washington Mardi Gras, and I'm going to talk about legislative priorities in a minute, but I will tell you that we are approaching the legislative session with the same optimism and spirit as all of those other events. I've also been traveling around the state of Louisiana, and I've been to every campus. Nancy, I haven't been to Eunice yet, but we are coming to Eunice. And what you've heard me say about the football team is, while we're champions on the field, we're also champions in the classroom, in the laboratory, in the studio, on the stage, and at my home school and Winston's alma mater, we're champions in the moot court room as well. As I've gone to all your campuses, I've learned just how true that statement is. I've also learned that the best thing that I can do is listen. Now I'm not saying I haven't talked, because that's my nature, but I've listened to you, and as I've heard your hopes, your dreams, your concerns, it's given me a clearer vision for my leadership over the next few months as we select the next president. I'd like to share a few of the highlights of just the last couple months. Sarah Procopio of Baton Rouge is an honors college student. She's a junior. She's an Ogden Honors College majoring in mass communications, and she has been selected from among 773 applicants at 316 colleges and universities as a national finalist for the prestigious Truman Scholarship. So go, Sarah. LSU School of Veterinary Medicine researchers, as part of the LSU Tulane Center for Experimental Infectious Disease Research, are performing significant research on coronaviruses with the goal of producing a vaccine for testing that could soon be used for prevention of human causes of the virus. LSU Online is going strong and has begun offering 8 online bachelor's degrees and 2 online associate degrees from LSU Alexandria. Paul, thank you for the hard work on those. Among the many new programs is LSUA's online Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, which is currently ranked as the top 25 nationwide best online business programs. The National College Learning Center Association designated LSU's acclaimed learning center, the Center for Academic Success, as one of just a handful. The handful is actually 6 learning centers of excellence in the country for the second time. The only other university 2 times designated is Texas A&M. The LSU Shreveport debate team took first place overall for the state of Louisiana at the annual Southern Forensics Championship Tournament held at Mississippi State. Larry, we assume you'll probably be sending some of those down to Baton Rouge to LSU Law Center. A team of LSU researchers have reached the semifinals of the $5 million IBM Watson AI X Prize. Their work focuses on pinpointing compounds that should be effective against specific bacteria. LSU Petroleum Engineering professor Dandina Rao was announced as editor-in-chief of Petroleum Science and Technology, an international journal that publishes original, high-quality, peer-reviewed research and review articles that explore various aspects of the petroleum industry. The LSU Engineering Department received a $3.4 million National Science Foundation for Service grant to fund 21 cybersecurity scholarships over a 5-year period. And under Provost Haney's dynamic leadership, we have established the School of Collaborative Academic Programs, which is a multi-college, interdisciplinary, and cutting-edge program bridging faculty expertise across disciplines to offer cross-disciplinary curricula to undergraduate and graduate students. And I'd like to ask my friend, Chancellor Bill Richardson. Bill, you've got an announcement you'd like to make.
Yes, as you know, last year we brought to you a proposal to create a mitigation bank with property down at the in St. Gabriel. We've completed those negotiations. There'll be an announcement going out. The president signed off on that agreement. We told you we'd come back and tell you when we got completed. That's been done. We're very excited about that, and that'll be starting next week.
Congratulations, and thank you. We've also added some impressive new faculty and staff members. Among them, earlier this week, we welcomed Clay Jones as LSU's new Chief Human Resources Officer. LSU Shreveport announced Dr. Kay Evans as its new Department of Education Chair, and the LSU Foundation Board of Directors named LSU alumnus Robert M. Stewart, Jr., we call him Rob, President and CEO of the LSU Foundation. Rob, congratulations. He has served as interim president and CEO since January 1st, and I know that he would want me to tell you that we have raised over $800 million towards our $1.5 billion goal on the Fierce for the Future campaign, and we'll keep going from here. So congratulations, Rob. Thank you. We have also been very, very busy as we shape our legislative agenda and meet with leaders in the legislature. Our primary concern over the last few years, well, last 10 to 12 years, has just get enough budget dollars to let us operate. Well, it's time for a new reinvestment in higher education. My former student, Governor John Bell Edwards, has indicated that, in fact, he supports a reinvestment in education, and the budget bills that we've seen so far bear that out. At the top of our legislative agenda is remedying some of the long-term needs that we have. One is mandated costs, retirement and health care costs that we have to fund ourselves. Dan, on the Baton Rouge campus, essentially 100% of our state allocation goes to mandated costs. Larry, I know Health Sciences New Orleans well over, your mandated costs are well over 100% of your state allocated budget. So that's really, really important to us. It is in the bill right now, some relief, so we will pursue that. In addition, some funding for deferred maintenance. I think of deferred maintenance as that wet spot in the ceiling in my bathroom that I ignore. And when I ignore it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when I go back to fix it, it costs a lot more to fix than it would have cost if I could have fixed it in the first place. Higher education is that wet ceiling. LSU deferred maintenance across all of the campuses is almost $1 billion. So we've got to get some relief on that. We are also pursuing funding for a salary increase for our employees. We have to be able to recruit and retain great people. We've had some incredible recruitment success the last couple of years. We've got to be able to keep those people. We don't want them to leave us. We want them to stay with us. We want them to say when they have other opportunities, why in God's name would I ever want to leave LSU? On deferred maintenance, there's a couple of ways you can deal with deferred maintenance: repair or new facilities. And we have several significant capital projects for which we will seek funding. We will seek funding for a new science building on this campus. The College of Science is rocking and rolling. They are going through the roof on admissions. If that success continues, which we expect, By 23-24, without a new facility, we will have 780 first-year students who will not be able to get the labs that they need. Now they are taking lab courses as late as 10 o'clock at night. We also need funding for a new library. The library, I've said it. We need funding for a new library. In Shreveport, we see continued funding for an education and wellness center, and I will not go on and on because this has been a long day, but each one of the chancellors at the table has particular capital needs for which we will seek funding. What will we tell the legislature? We will tell the legislature we are worth the investment. Our economic impact, the positive economic impact of LSU across the state is $5.1 billion a year. For every dollar that the state provides for us, the return is $13.25. That's pretty good, yes? Imagine if our retirements were that. There would be no unfunded accrued liability, in fact. So we're excited about the positive momentum. We're excited about the potential for reinvestment, but please be vigilant. Join us at LSU at the Capitol Day on April 22nd and help us talk to the folks we need to talk to make key decisions for us. I would like to say, on a very serious note, talk about another matter that we're working really, really hard on, and that's the coronavirus. Y'all know the nation, the world is dealing with the coronavirus, and we are meeting daily. Every day we meet to talk about latest developments. Our goal is to educate, to prepare, to prevent, and if necessary, to treat. So far, we have canceled our international study away programs through August. We will be making an announcement that all international travel, at least in March and April, will be run through our high-risk travel protocols. We have upped cleaning on campus. We have upped signage. Wash your hands. Sneeze into your sleeve. I know I'm not a public health expert, but these things are really important. In Louisiana, we are resilient, we are compassionate, and we have a get on it and get it done attitude. And those traits will serve us very, very well as we deal with the coronavirus. I'll close by saying in my 15 and a half years at LSU over 2 hitches, there has never been a better time to be here. So let's keep that positive momentum going. And you've heard from AGB. My goal is to make this job as attractive as it can possibly be for whoever comes next so that we turn the keys to this great university over to someone and it is even better and stronger than it is today. And you will all be part of that success. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, President Galligan. We appreciate that, and your enthusiasm is felt across the state, and we thank you for the commitment you've made to us. You have certainly gotten off not just with a national championship, but in taking your message across all the campuses to Washington and back now a couple of times, and I'm excited about the work ahead of us here in Baton Rouge. This month, we have 15 reports to accept. These reports include regular audit reports as well as annual reporting related to assets, leases, and construction. Though not required, we also have the annual metric data report. I will accept a motion to accept all of the reports enumerated in this section of the agenda today. Is there a motion? Mr. Anderson?
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Blossman? Are there any objections? Without objection, the reports are adopted. I will now entertain one motion to approve all committee recommendations that were presented for board approval earlier today.
So moved.
Ms. Jones, is there a second? Mr. Mallett?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to recuse myself from voting on item 3 of the Property and Facilities Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Yarborough. Ms. Griffith, you've noted that. Thank you very much. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the committee reports are adopted. Very quickly, the chair would like to thank, again, everyone who put in the time and effort on the uniform affiliation agreement. This was something that, as was noted earlier, certainly needed to be updated, refreshed, renewed. It brought about a lot of very positive conversation. And again, thanks to James Williams, Ramey Starnes, and Jay Blossman for all the work and all the committee members who served to make this happen, along with our foundations and their leadership. I want to thank our staff and President Galligan for the important work that has been ongoing for many months with the Board of Regents to address the ever-changing climate of higher education. Our work isn't finished. We have had some very productive conversations, very positive meetings with the commissioner and the chairman, as well as many of the regents who have been very engaged to try to help LSU attain our goals and work as the flagship and leader of higher education in the state of Louisiana. We have a lot of support there. We don't always see eye to eye on the issues, but I think the conversations have been very enlightening for all of us, and it's been certainly a good relationship builder going forward, though some days we've had some not seeing eye to eye, but I think we have come out and are going forward representing higher education in a unified way as we enter the legislative session. So I want to particularly thank the commissioner and the chair at the Board of Regents and all the regents and their staff who've worked very diligently to assure LSU leads higher education in this state. I also want to thank those who don't get a lot of thanks because their work is really beginning. We talk about we are here to educate students. We have lauded our coaches and our athletic staff. We've talked about our foundations. There's a group of people who are really about to get to work, and that's our governmental relations team. These men and women will, starting Monday, they've already started, but being Monday, they will be up at the Capitol representing every component of LSU, as I like to call us right now, the 8 jewels in the crown that is LSU, making sure that all of our issues are discussed, facts shared, the stories are told across the state and what it means to each corner of the state and to each member of the delegation, whether it be north or south, east or west, whether there is a LSU college or university, laboratory, research station in their district, or we are talking about the services and opportunities we deliver through our 4-H and extension programs, which happens in every state, every parish of the state. So thanks ahead to our governmental relations team and the hard work that they are about to embark on to help us achieve the goals that we need to achieve as the president enumerated. The governor has been very thoughtful and very engaging with us in helping not just LSU, but all higher education reach to a new level of success in the state. It's going to be an interesting 3 months. We need everybody on board, especially on April 22nd, but every opportunity we have to tell our story is one more opportunity to convince a legislator who may have not ever had the chance to attend school here or attend a football game or a basketball game and share the story of what an LSU education and opportunity means. So with that, that concludes the chair's remarks. I would like to announce our next meeting is on April 23rd, 2020 in Baton Rouge. Is there any further business the board would like to bring? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Any opposition? Without any, this meeting is adjourned.